our neighbors had a 1964 Autobogan, a Canadian Polaris. And I vividly remember them coming over. This machine, they had to go about a mile across the snowy, farmland. They got stuck. The first thing they did was show up saying, "Can we borrow a shovel?" And then they came over. There was a toboggan behind there. My dad, thank God, was one of those guys who always took slide pictures. And I have this precious picture of me behind this snowmobiling, looking a little scared, but that was February 1965.
First time I got on a snowmobile, I got started with that with my dad. He had, between me and my dad, we probably own 25 snowmobiles still. So I got on snowmobiles when I was 4 or 5 years old, started riding and stuff, but then started racing. I was always into snowmobiles, so it was easy to get into racing. If I was to ride trail sleds today, I'd ride Polaris. I don't know, I grew up on Polarises, but in the vintage world, you gotta ride Arctic Cat because you can put about any brand of motor in them.
It's probably before I was physically capable of forming memories. Yeah.
I let you ride my Storm.
Yeah. Yeah, but you putted me around before that. No, Grandpa had me on his Bobcat, like when I was a kid, when he was wearing this suit. It's like I say, it was probably before I was like physically capable of forming memories. I was on a snowmobile.
I had a bunch of old Skidoos my grandpa gave me. He raced back in the days, and he never got rid of any of them. Well, I think he got rid of some of them, but he brought me a whole, I think it was like 6 or 7 old Skidoos, and I started riding them. And I wouldn't mind having one again, but I just kind of buy whatever works for the race. I have Arctic Cats, Yamahas, Scorpions, I got a Viking, I got a little bit of everything.
They used to rent out Skidoos back in about 1966 or 66, I suppose, in Spicer. And there was 2 young guys that they were friends with my brothers, and they rented 2 Skidoos, and they come driving up here. And I never knew there was such a thing that could go over snow, and especially go up a hill on snow. And they come driving right up the hill. We had a house on top of the hill, and they drove right up the hill. And I couldn't believe there was such a thing that they could go up a hill on snow. And well, after they left, this sounds really crazy, but I took a piece of plywood and I covered up their tracks. Because when my little friends came over, I used to open up the plywood, lift it up and say, "Look, there was a Skidoo here." And my friends used to say, "Well, what's a Skidoo?" And I said, "It's this yellow thing that went over snow." And so, I thought that was really cool. Well, then my neighbor down the road here, about a mile, he had some friends out of, I don't know where, they're probably from the Twin Cities, that had bought snowmobiles back about 1960, I don't know, 67, 68, in the summertime, and they brought them to a big alfalfa field that was just mowed, and they were giving rides. And I stood in line for about 4 hours because every neighbor wanted a snowmobile ride, and as a little kid, I wanted to ride too. And they gave everybody else rides first, and I stood there and waited, and I finally got a ride on that snowmobile line. And I just thought, that's the greatest thing in the world.
I grew up on Polarises and ski rolls, and we didn't have too many Arctic Cats, but my dad was a huge Polaris man. He loved them. So we always had sleds. They all went to a boneyard somewhere. But we had 2 ski rolls and about 4 Polarises, and I think we had a Skidoo in there somewhere too, and a Scorpion. But yeah, at that time they were junk. Nobody saved them. Who would think that they would be worth something now?
My brother and I put a lot of miles on a Yamaha Phaser. It was a good sled. Getting pulled behind on toboggans and the saucers. Stuck 2 saucers behind the snowmobile, and we'd pull 2 people behind. It was a lot of fun. Neighbor kids would come over and spend 2 days riding a snowmobile.
Like period or a race sled?
Yeah, how about both? When was the first time you were on a...
I don't know, period was probably a piece of crap Skidoo somewhere out in the woods with my dad trying to get stuff out to the deer shack, but I don't know.
I was 13. My dad won a 1968 Skidoo 10-horse playing pool at the Moose Lodge. We are the last family holding out not buying snowmobiles. and he wasn't going to buy us one, and he won it. So the guy dropped it off in the middle of the day. I started it. I couldn't ride it on the street, so I drove it around the house all day. And then when my parents got home, my father was in a suit, my mother was in a dress. They sat on it to see what it would do, and they went off down the street, and they came home drunk 4 hours later and found out that that's what snowmobiles were really for. From then on, we were always a snowmobiling family. I think we had 9 at one time. But other than that Skidoo, everything was always a Polaris. And quite a few came from the pool table at the Moose, by the way.